Dolphin belly. You're going to hear this bait mentioned a lot down here in South Florida. It's a very, very popular bait in the Keys, as well as right out front of here in Hollywood and Fort Lauderdale area. We do catch a lot of dolphins, so a lot of guys do use the dolphin belly. The bottom portion is cut away from the top section of the dolphin. You're going to notice when I rig a dolphin belly that I actually cut away the fins at the bottom here. There's a hard bone structure inside, which I like to stay away from. I think it makes it harder to hook them. So I'll actually cut the fins off right there, just actually in front of it. So we'll take that off, and that leaves us with a nice clean belly portion. Once you go in, you can actually clean out the belly portion. Basically, there's a lining inside the stomach. And again, if you have the place to do it and you can take the time, it's definitely worth getting everything clean, drying your bait before you rig it. And basically, this is what we do. Now remember, we rig a lot of baits at one time, and we have to be consistent with what we do. So, you know, we may rig 30 or 40 of these baits at one time. So again, when you're set up and you've got all your tools in place, you're going to see our hooks. We're going to go into the things we talked about before. But again, everything's positioned so that it makes it easy for you to rig. This particular bait's about 12 to 15 inches. So what I'm going to elect to use in a bait like this is 2 hooks. Some guys like one and they can bring it way back. Some guys like one right up here, so it gives a lot of action to the back of the bait. This particular bait I like 2, and what you see here are 2 11-ohs. It is the tuna bend hook. You've got on this back hook, you're going to notice this black. That's electrical tape. Basically what I'm doing with that tape is I'm taping that so that it stays consistent and it doesn't fall over like you see that front one doing. So as my back hook, once that one is actually lodged in the bait, it gives some sort of a consistency though, so that that thing's not all over the place. Basically, you know, you've got your 2 hooks, and what you're going to end up seeing in the bait is this. It's going to lay just like that, and that piece of monofilament is going to be between the 2. So that's really what you're looking at. To get started with this particular bait, I'm going to try and make it easy for myself, so I'm going to go to my ice pick. I'm going to take my ice pick, I'm going to look at where my hooks are going to come out, and my eye on my hooks are, and I'm going to go and I'm going to make a mark. So I'm going to line up the eye of the hook, and I'm going to make an incision at the base of the dolphin belly. And that's where my mono is going to go in. That being said, once I come down here, I can look at where my hook's going to come out. So I'm going to put my thumb right there where that hook's going to come out. That's my indicator from the inside or the outside. So I'm going to make a hole there. I'm going to ride back down to the base of the dolphin belly, and I'm going to make an incision right there. So I know where my hooks need to come out based on where we're at. At this point, I'm going to come in, I'm going to turn my bait over, I'm going to go in to my mark, the same. Again, make sure when you're looking at this now, take a look. Hooks out, basically at the top, even if you did it from the inside. Before you actually hook that, don't ruin the bait by putting the hook in there if it's not in the right spot. If I look at that closely, there's my eye. This is where my hook needs to go in, right there at the back. So even if you wanted to mark it with your hand, I can feel my hole there, and I go through. At that point, both hooks are coming out the other side of the bait. Looks like it's lined up perfectly, where I can go in and now put my mono into this bait. Remember, we're using 300-pound with our E-crimp, Momoy extra hard. Put your crimp on. You're going to go through. You'll actually go through the eye of the hook. And once you're through the eye of the hook, basically you can find your hole on the other side midship of that strip. So crimp on first, through the eye, not through the mono here. Don't touch the mono with a loop. Go through the eye and out the other side. Put it inside your crimp. Pull it down. Okay. At that point, basically I'm ready to stitch this bait up. One other note on a dolphin belly. A lot of guys will cut out this bone right here and floss the 2 together. I actually like it. I think it gives a little bit more sturdiness to the bait. And with a dolphin belly, it's still got flexibility on the back end to give it action. which again, if your bait's got good action, you know, it has a tendency to get bit more. If it's a dud or doesn't really look that good in the water to you, it's probably not going to look that good to them. So, as far as stitching this bait up, let's start with our first stitch. Again, we're going with our serrated knife and our 50-pound floss. We're going to take our 4-inch needle. Okay, we're going to go through the eye, and I'm going to twist 2 or 3 times. That'll make that sturdy. I'm going to open this back up. I'm going to look at my 2 hooks and where they're placed, and I'm actually going to go through this back hook, the eye of this back hook, and outside the bait. What this is going to do is it's going to tie that hook to the actual skin of this bait inside, and it's going to make it sturdy. I don't really want my hooks riding around inside there, being able to move around. So I'm going to go out, and then I'm going to come back in. When I come back in, you can see where I've gone out, and now I'm coming back in. So at that point, I'm tying. I'm going to take an overhand loop. Just take the 2 tag ends, make a loop with it, stick the other 2 in that loop, and pull the 2 together. That'll tie that eye in place right there. Go in. Nice cut. That hook is sturdy. Second piece of floss we're going to use is going to steady that top hook. I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to go in, get yourself about an 8-inch piece of floss. Go in, go underneath your hook, and underneath that mono. Underneath this hook, and underneath this mono, and out the other side. Once you go out, we're going to end up coming back in. When we come back in, I'm going to go on top of that mono and on top of that. So as you make your hole to come back in, make sure it's on the top side. Once you've got it there, again, make your loop. 2 tag ends go inside the loop, and you can pull that tight. Once you've got it pulled tight, cut off your excess there. Okay. Let's stop here and let's look at our bait for a second. You can see the 2 stitches on the outside. Basically, inside the bait, through the eye of the hook, around the main line that's connecting the 2 hooks, and around the actual hook itself. So that hook, those hooks are sturdy in that bait. Remember, again, we're daytime sword fishing. This bait at times can be a half a mile from you. So we want to be able to make something that's very, very sturdy. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and floss this bait up. I'm going to stitch up this cavity. There's no rhyme or reason to it, really a wrong and right way. Basically, you're just trying to close that up. One thing that you do have to remember in doing it is to pick a long enough piece of floss. So, rule of thumb, I take about 3 lengths of the bait. 2, 3. The 3 lengths of the bait, I know I can go up and back and still have room for the width of the bait. So, got our long piece of floss. Sometimes at the end of that wax material, you got to pull it straight or it won't go into that hole there. Let's try the other end. And at times you're going to have to do that, especially if it's wet. So make sure you get in there, pull it. It's going to give us a struggle today, but that's okay. You got it in. Go ahead and roll it a few times. Pull it tight. Now, we're going to start to stitch. I'm going to start up here at the top of my bait. I'm going to go through. I'm going to pull out my excess. I'm going to make sure I leave enough floss on this end to tie that knot. Pull that floss towards you. Come on down. Let's go through. Go ahead and pull tight. Don't be afraid to pull that tight. Dolphin skin is very, very tough. Come on down. A lot of times when I'm doing it, I'll try and flatten that bait a little bit when I pull tight on it. Go through as well. Continue on down the length of the bait. Once I get towards the end, two things I'm conscious of. Make sure you got enough floss to go back now. Remember we talked about having three lengths of the bait in the floss. So I've gotten to the end where I'm going to start going back. Now you really just go right back into the holes that you made before. Makes it easy. You get that crisscross pattern to it. I always joke with the guys when I'm on a charter or on the boat and people are watching me rig a bait. They, gosh, you know, you really sew that up like a doctor. I said I used to make baseball gloves for a living, and I don't laugh, and they think and then I start laughing eventually, and they think I'm whacked out. Anyway, at the end here, we've gone through all of our stitches. We went all the way down. Now we've come all the way back, and I've got the two tag ends. We're going to make that loop. Put the two tag ends inside, pull it out, and pull it tight. Trim off the excess. Okay, I'm going to take this off for 1 second, just so you can get a good look at what we're doing here. We've got two hooks that are inside this bait. The reason I'm taking that mono off is so that you can actually see how this thing is positioned. You can actually see the eye of the hook there, okay? And remember, that's tied in here. You still got flexibility to this bait. It's stitched up. This is a very, very tough bait. Again, in recapping, here you can see from the outside where your stitches are. I think that may be one of the reasons I like red as well, is because I can actually, in the end, see what my bait looks like and how it's presented. At this point right here, what you're going to end up doing is basically you're done rigging the bait. I know my hooks are placed where they need to be placed. At this point we're going to put our finishing touches on it, and we'll be ready to fish this one. I'm a fan of a green skirt over this bait. I do like the green with the bars on it, and the black and silver with the black bars. Kind of goes with the color of the bait. I don't know if it's because I'm artsy or if it even means anything, but I do like that. Try and pick a skirt that actually works with the bait, so that when you actually put the bait together and you slide that skirt over the bait, it actually fits the bait perfectly. Don't be afraid to cut the skirt a little bit shorter. Don't be afraid to cut the skirt a little bit shorter than down here. That way you still got the smell out the back side of the bait. So right now, dolphin belly. Ready to fish. In some cases, you know, one last thing I want to point out about this skirt and these hooks. At times you're going to notice on the boat that I actually cut the skirts away from this section so as that they don't actually hang up on the hooks. Now, in this particular instance, I don't want to shorten my skirts up above this point, so I'll actually leave them here, and I may actually come in and cut that section out, making sure that the bottom portion of this skirt doesn't actually hinder or get caught on the top of that hook.